Chapter 43-37. Without the crossing adversity airship, no Emperor God would be able to cross the adversity-avoiding ocean. The crossing adversity airship flew at an extremely fast speed towards the other side of the adversity-avoiding ocean. With the crossing adversity airship speed, it would take about 7 days to cross the entire adversity-avoiding ocean and enter the core region. Time flew by quickly. 2 days had passed in the blink of an eye. They had already traveled an unknown distance. Whoosh whoosh. The black fog in front of them suddenly began to churn. Then, a huge monster appeared in front of them. It was a black creature. Its body was like a worm, but there were many arms around its body. It kept grabbing at the air as if it wanted to crush something. The most terrifying thing was the creature's head. There was a human face there. Its facial features were distorted and it looked ferocious like an evil spirit. "This is the crossing adversity ghost," someone exclaimed in surprise and sucked in a breath of cold air. That's right. This was the most terrifying existence in the adversity-avoiding ocean, the crossing adversity ghost. The black fog in the adversity-avoiding ocean wasn't the most terrifying. Most people could withstand it for a while. However, if they encountered the crossing adversity ghost, they would die. Even a peak Emperor God wouldn't stand a chance against the crossing adversity ghost. The crossing adversity ghost was huge and it was about 100 meters long. It flew towards the crossing adversity airship. Everyone's hearts couldn't help but rise to their throats. Even though they had the crossing adversity airship, they were still nervous. The crossing adversity ghost flew nearby and circled around the crossing adversity airship. Its pair of cold eyes kept scanning the crowd. Some people felt goosebumps all over their bodies when they were swept by this cold gaze. The crossing adversity airship glowed and continued to fly forward. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The crossing adversity ghost let out an ear-piercing squeak and charged towards the crowd. Some people who weren't mentally strong couldn't help but circulate their divine power and get ready for battle. Lu Ming and Yi Ling stood quietly at the bow of the airship. Their faces were calm and their eyes were motionless. When the crossing adversity airship got close and came into contact with the light emitted by the crossing adversity airship, it let out a sizzling sound. It was like ice melting when it came into contact with fire. Black smoke came out of the crossing adversity ghost's body. The crossing disaster ghost shrieked as a look of fear appeared in its eyes, and it quickly retreated. Everyone saw that the crossing disaster ghost's body seemed to have shrunk due to the influence of the crossing disaster airship's light. Whoosh! Many people breathed a sigh of relief. As expected, they were safe inside the crossing adversity airship. Not only could the crossing adversity airship block the black fog outside, it could also block the crossing adversity ghost. The crossing disaster ghost let out an ear-piercing shriek. It circled the crossing disaster airship a few times before flying off into the distance. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the black fog. Everyone was finally able to put down a huge rock in their hearts. The Calamity crossing airship continued to fly forward. In the following period of time, they encountered the Calamity crossing ghosts a few more times. But in the end, they were all scared off by the adversity crossing flying boat. Very quickly, 4 days passed. They had already covered more than half of the journey. In another 3 days, they would be able to completely cross the adversity-avoiding sea and enter the core region. "Hey, what's that?" Suddenly, someone exclaimed and pointed to the left. Everyone's gaze also turned in that direction. On the left, there was a ray of light that could be seen even through the black fog. Moreover, it was also moving and seemed to be synchronized with Lu Ming's crossing disaster airship. As Lu Ming's crossing disaster airship flew forward, the ball of light also moved forward. It was always on the left side of Lu Ming's group. "Look, there's one on the right too," someone shouted. Indeed, everyone saw a ball of light on the right too. It was also moving with Lu Ming's group at about the same speed. Lu Ming frowned. He had a bad premonition in his heart. "Lu Ming, can you see it clearly too? I have a bad feeling." Yi Ling sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. He had a similar feeling as well. Geniuses were usually extremely sensitive to danger. "The fog is too thick. I can't see it clearly either." Lu Ming shook his head with a grave expression. Suddenly, His eyes widened and he looked ahead. At this moment, there was also a ball of light in front of them. Stop! With a thought from Lu Ming, the speed of the crossing disaster airship rapidly slowed down and finally came to a stop. The moment they stopped, the two balls of light on the left and right also stopped. There was a commotion in the crossing disaster airship. Many people felt a little uneasy and the atmosphere became a little tense. The ball of light in front became clearer and clearer. Gradually, everyone could see what it was. It was a crossing disaster airship. That's right, it was also a crossing disaster airship that was flying in front of them. Could it be that it was returning from the core area? The crossing disaster airship in front became clearer and clearer until it completely appeared in front of them. It's the heavenly human tribe. Lu Ming and Yi Ling's eyes suddenly narrowed. They could clearly see that there were some people standing on the deck of the crossing disaster airship in front. Those people were all from the heavenly human tribe. It's the heavenly human tribe. I thought it was something else. I'm so scared. Seeing that it was the heavenly human tribe, the people on the crossing disaster airship heaved a sigh of relief. The heavenly human tribe would not attack them for no reason. Look, there are also crossing disaster airships on the left and right. Someone shouted. At that moment, the two balls of light on the left and right became clearer and clearer. Then, two more crossing disaster airships appeared. Unsurprisingly, there were also people from the heavenly human tribe on these two crossing disaster airships. The heavenly human tribe is actually waiting for us here. Yi Ling's face was extremely solemn. This is a little troublesome. There are probably some people who have already entered the core area, Lu Ming muttered. A group of top experts from the heavenly human tribe had already entered the core area to seize the opportunities. There were definitely cultivators of the 8th or 9th Great Supreme God layer in there. Among the younger generation, there might not be such a high cultivation level, but among the middle-aged generation, there definitely were. So it's the heavenly human tribe. May I know what you are doing here? On Lu Ming's crossing disaster airship, a young man cupped his fists and said respectfully, "We are waiting for you here." A burly man from the heavenly human tribe said coldly. He looked at Lu Ming and Yi Ling, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Lu Ming knew this burly man. He was one of the experts who had tried to kill Lu Ming and Yi Ling. When Tianxian Yu arrived, they managed to kill him and he fled. Waiting for us? Many people were a little confused. To be precise, we are waiting for the two of them. The burly man from the heavenly human tribe pointed at Lu Ming and Yi Ling. On the deck, 200 pairs of eyes looked at Lu Ming and Yi Ling, full of doubts. Perhaps you still don't know who they are. The two of them are traitors. The burly man from the heavenly human tribe said. Chapter 43:38. What? They are traitors. The 200 people on the deck were shocked when they heard what the heavenly human tribe man had said. They moved away from Lu Ming and Yi Ling and looked at them coldly. They are not only traitors. Do you know who he is? He is Mu Yun. If you kill him, you can become the son of heaven or the daughter of heaven, the heavenly human tribe man added. After saying those words, the heavenly human clan's robust man stopped speaking and stopped. He knew that he didn't need to say anything because he knew what was going to happen next. As expected, when the 200 people on Lu Ming's crossing adversity airship heard that Lu Ming was Mu Yun, they started breathing heavily. Their eyes were filled with greed and killing intent. Mu Yun. They would never have thought that the young man with them was Mu Yun, the person that the heavenly palace wanted to kill. As long as he could kill him, he could become the son of heaven or daughter of heaven of the celestial palace. He could become a dragon with a single leap and achieve a meteoric rise, changing his future fate. However, when their gazes fell on Yi Ling, fear appeared in their eyes. Yi Ling had fought before and his strength was astonishing. Let's attack together. No matter how strong he is, it will be useless. That's right. Let's attack together. In the chaos, whoever kills Mu Yun will get the credit. Yes, kill. Many people shouted. In the end, they couldn't resist the temptation of becoming the son of heaven or the daughter of heaven. Their minds were filled with greed. They recklessly attacked Lu Ming and Yi Ling. 200 people. At least 100 of them charged toward Lu Ming. "You're courting death." Lu Ming and Yi Ling's eyes glittered coldly. Swoosh swoosh. Lu Ming condensed a long spear with the taboo power in his hands. He cast the heaven-breaking style and activated his combat power to the maximum. Rays of spear light burst forth and charged towards these people. At the same time, Yi Ling also attacked. Dazzling sword lights filled the sky. Although there were many experts among the 100 people who had attacked him and many of them were at the 6th layer of the Emperor God realm, none of them could threaten Lu Ming. Although there were only 2 of them, Lu Ming and Yi Ling's attacks were even more ferocious and powerful than those of over 100 people. When the attacks of both sides collided, the attacks of over 100 people were defeated. Pitiful cries rang out one after another as people were pierced by the spear light or the sword light, dying on the spot. "Kill." Lu Ming and Yi Ling shouted coldly and rushed out. All kinds of attacks poured out like a storm. No. Spare me. Misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. The remaining people shouted crazily. They were scared out of their wits. Yi Ling's combat power had completely exceeded their expectations. It was even more terrifying than they had imagined. However, the most terrifying one was still Lu Ming. Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the 5th Great Supreme God layer, but his combat power was not weaker than Yi Ling's. Even though there were more than 100 people attacking, they could not withstand a single blow. Lu Ming and Yi Ling did not show any mercy. They kept attacking with all kinds of killing moves. One by one, they were killed. In an instant, there were more than 100 corpses on the deck. Blood dyed the crossing adversity airship red. There were still 80 or 90 people left. Those who had not attacked before were dumbfounded. They were completely terrified. Their bodies were trembling and their lips were trembling. Their eyes were wide open and they were filled with fear. "Spare me." These people begged for mercy. "Get out of the crossing adversity airship," Lu Ming said coldly. "Let's go to the Heavenly Human Tribe's crossing adversity airship. Let's go." The remaining 80 or 90 people rushed out crazily towards the 3 Heavenly Human Tribes crossing adversity airships. The 3 Heavenly Human Tribes crossing adversity airships were not full. There were less than 100 people on each of the airships. In an instant, Lu Ming's crossing adversity airship was empty except for Lu Ming and Yi Ling. These people flew towards the 3 Heavenly Human Tribes crossing adversity airships. The black fog rushed towards these people. These people activated their divine power and set up layers of defense around their bodies to resist the corrosion of the black fog. Although the black fog was terrifying, they could still resist it for a while with their cultivation. They quickly approached the 3 Heavenly Human Tribes crossing adversity airships. "Lords of the Heavenly Human Tribe, please let us board the airship. Please let us board the airships. We can't resist for long," these people begged. "Humph, a bunch of trash. You want to board the airship? You can fend for yourselves outside," a strong man from the Heavenly Human Tribe shouted coldly. As soon as he said that, the expressions of these people changed drastically. Was the Heavenly Human Tribe not letting them board the airships? If they were not allowed to board the airships, they would die. "Lords, please do me a favor and let me board the airships. I will not forget your great kindness. Please, let me board the airships. I'm willing to be your slave in the future," many people shouted. However, the Heavenly Human Tribes crossing adversity airships were indifferent and unmoved. Many people looked desperate. "Let me board, let me board." Finally, some people went crazy and rushed towards the Heavenly Human Tribes crossing adversity airship. They wanted to use brute force to board the airships. Courting death. Someone from the Heavenly Human Tribe shouted coldly and attacked. The person who attacked was extremely powerful. These people could not resist at all. In an instant, dozens of people were killed. Then, their corpses were corroded by the black fog and turned into nothingness. The remaining people were desperate and rushed towards Lu Ming's crossing adversity airship. "Let's go." At this moment, Lu Ming shouted and controlled the crossing adversity airship to fly to the back in an attempt to escape. This time, the Heavenly Human Tribe came prepared and definitely sent out a terrifying expert. It was very dangerous for them to fight head-on. However, the heavenly human tribe was already prepared. When Lu Ming and the others retreated, the 3 crossing adversity airships of the heavenly human tribe also moved and chased after Lu Ming and the others. The remaining people were left behind, and they let out cries of despair. However, no one cared about them. Lu Ming controlled the crossing adversity airship with all his strength, but the heavenly human tribe's crossing adversity airship chased after them relentlessly. Moreover, the distance between the 2 parties was slowly closing. Lu Ming, you can't escape. Be obedient and accept your death. A cold voice came from one of the crossing adversity airships. However, Lu Ming and Yi Ling did not say a word and only cared about escaping. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. At this moment, 2 figures rushed out from each of the 3 crossing adversity airships. They were 6 burly men from the heavenly human tribe. They were very fast, even faster than the crossing adversity airship. They quickly approached Lu Ming and the others. They are 9th layer divine gods, Yi Ling exclaimed, and his face changed drastically. Lu Ming's face also changed drastically. The other party had indeed sent out terrifying experts. 6 9th layer divine gods. Chapter 43-39. 9th layer Emperor God realm cultivators were much stronger than them. Most importantly, they were not ordinary 9th layer Emperor God realm cultivators. Any one of them from the heavenly human tribe had at least 2 stars of fighting strength. These 6 strong men had reached the 9th layer Emperor God realm at such a young age. How could they only have 2 stars of fighting strength? This was a combat strength that they could not resist. Do you think you can survive by hiding in the crossing adversity airship? How naive. Break. Break. The 6 experts from the heavenly human tribe shouted and attacked at the same time. Some of them held spears, some held swords. 6 attacks were launched at Lu Ming and the others at the same time. All of them have mastered the strongest heavenly force. Lu Ming and Yi Ling's faces turned solemn. These 6 strong men were obviously the geniuses of the heavenly human tribe. They had mastered one of the 4 strongest heavenly forces of the heavenly human tribe. Some of them had mastered the heavenly punishment force, while others had mastered the heavenly punishment force. Although their mastery of the heavenly human tribe was not very high, it was enough to make their fighting strength terrifying. Lu Ming and Yi Ling were well aware that the 2 of them were definitely not a match for any one of them. They would be killed in seconds. Boom. 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 The attacks from the 6 of them hit the barrier of the crossing adversity airship, causing it to shake violently. The barrier of the crossing adversity airship was distorted as if it was going to collapse at any time. Oh no, we can't block them. Lu Ming and Yi Ling's hearts sank. The main function of the crossing adversity airship was to block the black fog outside and to deter the crossing adversity ghosts. Although it had defensive strength, it was not strong. Its defensive power was limited against the attacks of other living beings. Ordinary experts could naturally defend against it. However, the 6 experts from the heavenly human tribe were too strong. The crossing adversity airship's defense could not block them at all. However, Lu Ming did not give up. He continued to control the crossing adversity airship and flew rapidly in a direction. Lu Ming flew in that direction because he remembered that there was a crossing adversity ghost in that direction. As long as they encountered the disaster-avoiding ghost, the 6 robust celestial racemen would definitely not dare to continue attacking and would be scared off. However, the attacks of the 6 top powers from the heavenly human tribe rained down like a torrential storm. The crossing adversity airship shook even more violently and cracks appeared on the surrounding barrier. He was about to be unable to hold on any longer. Lu Ming and Yi Ling's bodies were tense. They were ready to fight at any moment. Creak creak creak. An ear-piercing sound came from the front, causing Lu Ming and Yi Ling's eyes to light up. However, the 6 heavenly human tribe elites' expressions changed drastically. The ghost of disaster averting. This voice was emitted by the crossing disaster ghost. In the past, Lu Ming hated this kind of sound, but now, he was incomparably happy. Lu Ming looked behind him and saw a huge avoiding disaster ghost wandering around. When it saw Lu Ming and the others, it flew towards them. Hurry up and destroy their crossing adversity airship. A brawny heavenly human tribe man roared as he pushed his battle prowess to the extreme. The 6 brawny heavenly human tribe men unleashed their strongest attack at the same time. They even burned a portion of their heavenly force. Boom boom boom. This time, the 6 attacks were even more terrifying. They bombarded the barrier of the crossing adversity airship at the same time. Most importantly, the 6 attacks were still bombarding the same spot. The pressure caused was too strong. Crack. This time, the barrier of the crossing adversity airship could no longer withstand the attacks and collapsed directly. Oh no, Lu Ming and Yi Ling were shocked. Lu Ming used all his strength to control the crossing adversity airship that had no barrier and continued to fly towards the crossing disaster ghost. Die. Kill. The 6 heavenly human tribe elites naturally knew that this was a critical moment. If Lu Ming and Yi Ling were to get close to the crossing disaster ghost in the crossing adversity airship, the situation would change. Therefore, the 6 heavenly human tribe elites attacked with all their might. 6 terrifying attacks were directed at Lu Ming and Yi Ling, trying to kill the 2 of them in one fell swoop. In the face of such terrifying attacks, Lu Ming and Yi Ling found it difficult to block them. At the critical moment, Lu Ming controlled the crossing adversity airship to tilt over and protect the 2 of them. Dang dang dang. The 6 attacks all bombarded the crossing adversity airship. The crossing adversity airship shook violently. Cracks appeared on the surface of the crossing adversity airship. The crossing adversity airship was originally made up of 9 different parts. These cracks were the gaps between the 9 parts. At this moment, after being attacked violently, the parts where the parts were glued together began to crack and were about to separate. Finally, with a bang, a few parts could no longer be glued together and were sent flying by the powerful force. Lu Ming and Yi Ling hurriedly attacked, trying to grab hold of these parts. However, the 6 heavenly human tribe elites also attacked. Although Lu Ming and Yi Ling were closer to these parts, one of the parts still fell into the hands of the heavenly human tribe. At this moment, they were very close to the crossing disaster ghost. Squeak squeak squeak, the crossing disaster ghost shrieked and let out an ear-piercing sound. It emitted a terrifying aura that made Lu Ming, Yi Ling, and the 6 heavenly human tribe elites shiver. Especially the 6 heavenly human tribe elites. They did not have any treasures that could intimidate the crossing disaster ghost. On the other hand, Lu Ming and the other half of the broken crossing adversity airship were still shining brightly. The crossing disaster ghost looked at the 6 heavenly human tribe elites with a ferocious gaze. Its huge body pounced on them directly. Oh no, quickly retreat to the crossing adversity airship. Their crossing adversity airship is no longer complete. One of the parts has fallen into our hands. Their crossing adversity airship will soon disintegrate. When that time comes, only death will await us. The 6 heavenly human tribe elites quickly exchanged a few words. Then, they quickly retreated and rushed back to their crossing adversity airship. As for their crossing adversity airship, they quickly rushed over. Before the crossing disaster ghost pounced on them, the 6 heavenly human tribe elites had already returned to the crossing adversity airship. Anyway, one of the parts of Lu Ming's crossing adversity airship had already fallen into their hands. Soon, their crossing adversity airship would disintegrate. The crossing disaster ghost approached the crossing adversity airship of the heavenly human tribe. It was afraid of the light emitted by the crossing adversity airship. After circling it a few times, it screeched a few times. Then, it turned around and rushed toward Lu Ming and the others. At this moment, Lu Ming's crossing adversity airship was indeed disintegrating. Piece by piece, the parts flew out and were caught by Lu Ming and Yi Ling. As for the calamity-avoiding ghost, it quickly flew toward Lu Ming and the rest. The 2 of them looked extremely grim. The crossing disaster ghost was extremely terrifying. If they were caught by it, only death would await them. Although the 2 of them tried their best to fly, the crossing disaster ghost was faster and was rapidly approaching them. Let's see how they'll die. On the 3 crossing adversity airships, the heavenly human tribe members sneered. Now, they were no longer in a hurry. They controlled the crossing adversity airship unhurriedly and followed from a distance. They wanted to enjoy the fear on Lu Ming and Yi Ling's faces. Chapter 4340. The avoiding disaster ghost quickly approached Lu Ming and Yi Ling. Its cold and terrifying aura gave them goosebumps. Their muscles tensed up involuntarily. This was a natural reaction when encountering a terrifying danger. Use the parts of the crossing disaster airship before it completely fades away, Lu Ming shouted softly. He grabbed a part of the crossing disaster airship and threw it at the avoiding disaster ghost. The crossing disaster airship had just disintegrated. The parts of the crossing disaster airship were still emitting a mysterious light and had not completely dissipated. They should still have a restraining effect on the avoiding disaster ghost. If the mysterious light on these parts completely dissipated, they would no longer have any restraining effect on the avoiding disaster ghost. Then they would be in real danger. Swoosh. A part of the crossing disaster airship flew toward the avoiding disaster ghost. Sure enough, the avoiding disaster ghost showed a look of fear. It did not dare to charge straight at them. Instead, it flew horizontally, changed directions, and charged at them again. Lu Ming and Yi Ling grabbed the remaining parts and threw them all out. They filled a large area and completely blocked the avoiding disaster ghost's path. Then the two of them took the opportunity to speed up to the maximum and charged into the distance. Lu Ming used the greater extreme light skill and his speed was astonishing. However, Yi Ling's speed was not slow either. He flew through the air like a beam of sword light. The two of them flashed a few times and disappeared into the thick black fog. Damn it, Chase. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. On the three-headed crossing disaster airship, a member of the Heavenly Human Tribe shouted angrily. He controlled the crossing disaster airship and charged in the direction that Lu Ming and Yi Ling had escaped. The avoiding disaster ghost sensed the light on the crossing disaster airship and showed a look of fear. It did not dare to stop them and hurriedly moved aside. The Heavenly Human Tribe's crossing disaster airship rushed past and collected all the parts of Lu Ming's crossing disaster airship. They rushed in the direction that Lu Ming and Yi Ling had escaped at the fastest speed. Unfortunately, after chasing for some time, they could not find any trace of Lu Ming and Yi Ling. Damn it, let's split up and chase. They can't have gone far. A burly Heavenly Human Tribe man shouted angrily. The three crossing adversity airships spread out and searched along the way. However, after a few hours, there was still no sign of Lu Ming and his companion. The three tribulation crossing airships gathered at the same place. The Heavenly Human Tribe cultivators on the airships all had dark expressions on their faces. They don't have the crossing adversity ferry boat, so they're dead for sure. It's a pity that we can't bring Lu Ming's body back. A muscular man from the Heavenly Human Race side. Without the protection of the Calamity Crossing airship, one would definitely die in the Calamity Crossing sea. They did not doubt this. However, they lacked Lu Ming's corpse, so they couldn't bring it back to claim credit. If they did, their contributions would be greatly reduced. That was why many Celestial clan members sighed. No matter what, Lu Ming died because he was hunted down by us. This is also meritorious service. If we split the credit equally, we can also obtain a lot of benefits. Another Heavenly Human said. Only then did everyone feel a little better. Let's go back. Then, the three adversity crossing airships left and headed towards the core area. Some time after the three adversity crossing airships left, two figures appeared in a pile of rocks in a certain area. They were Lu Ming and Yi Ling. The power that the two of them controlled was not to be underestimated. Although the surrounding black mist was corrosive, the two of them had no problem holding out for about a day. However, the two of them did not look good. Even if the two of them could hold out for a day, it was simply not enough. They were still very far away from the core area. Even if the two of them flew at full speed, they would need at least 2 days to reach the core area. There was simply not enough time. As for retreating, it was simply impossible. They would have to retreat even further. This was under the condition that they had not encountered the Calamity Crossing Ghost. If they encountered the Calamity Crossing Ghost, it would be even more dangerous. However, the two of them had no way out. Now, They had to bite the bullet and fly towards the core area. They could only take one step at a time. "Let's go," Lu Ming said. The two of them nodded and flew towards the core area together. Of course, they could also avoid the direction that the heavenly human race was heading in and go in another direction. Kai Kai. The black mist between heaven and earth seemed to have a mind of its own as it constantly surged towards Lu Ming and Yi Ling. Lu Ming used the forbidden power to lay down layers of defense around his body. When the black mist came into contact with the forbidden power, it made a sizzling sound. Even though the taboo power was able to keep the black fog at bay, it was being consumed at an alarming rate. The power that Yi Ling controlled was not as strong as the forbidden power. However, his cultivation was one level higher than Lu Ming's and the difficulty of blocking it was about the same as Lu Ming's. After a few hours, the two of them felt that a large portion of the power in their bodies had been consumed. They had been hiding for a few hours and flying for a few more hours. They felt that they could hold out for another 20 hours or so at most. After 20 hours, their power would be exhausted and they would be corroded by the black mist. Kai Kai Kai. Suddenly, a piercing sound came from the right side of Lu Ming and Yi Ling. When they heard this sound, the two of them had a drastic change in expression and became very ugly. The Calamity Crossing Ghost. This was the voice of the Calamity Crossing Ghost. What one did not want to see had happened. Whoosh whoosh. To their right, the black mist churned, and a colossal being appeared. It was the Calamity Crossing Ghost. The Calamity Crossing Ghost looked at Lu Ming and Yi Ling with a ferocious gaze. It let out a piercing shriek and pounced on Lu Ming and Yi Ling. "Let's go." The two of them immediately flew to the left. This was because the distance between them was the furthest in this direction. If they flew in other directions, the distance would be closer. Behind them, the Calamity Crossing Ghost chased after Lu Ming and Yi Ling. Its speed was faster than Lu Ming and Yi Ling. The distance between them was constantly closing. "We're in trouble." Their hearts began to sink. A few minutes later, the distance between them was even closer. At this rate, they would be caught in a few minutes. "Damn it. Let's see if it works." At this time, Yi Ling took out a disc array and activated it. He wanted to see if it could deal with the Calamity Crossing Ghost. This aura. It seems to be a treasure from the previous era. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. In the Grand Supreme Immortal City, the divine weapons and treasures from the primitive universe could not be used. However, the disc array in Yi Ling's hand did not seem to be a treasure from the primitive universe. "I obtained this disc array from a certain ruin in the universe. It should be an item from the previous era and is not restricted by the restrictions here," Yi Ling explained. The disc array shone and the light shone on the Calamity Crossing Ghost. The Calamity Crossing Ghost's eyes began to flicker a few times. Then, it continued to charge over and knocked the disc array away. It was useless. It was completely useless. Yi Ling's face turned even uglier. He originally wanted to try an item from the previous era to see if it could restrain the Calamity Crossing Ghost. In the end, it was useless. Chapter 43-41. The distance between the avoiding disaster ghost and Lu Ming was getting closer and closer. The terrifying and cold aura made the two of them tense up. They felt a chill in their hearts, as if an extremely cold blade was cutting into their skin. The sense of danger was getting stronger and stronger. "Let's try using the purple copper coffin," Lu Ming thought to himself. In the Grand Supreme Immortal City, the treasures of the primitive universe could not be used. However, the purple copper coffin was different from other divine weapons. Lu Ming took out the purple copper coffin not to activate the power of the purple copper coffin itself, but to open it and let the primitive divine spirit inside deal with the avoiding disaster ghost. However, there was a crucial point, and that was that the primitive divine spirit in the purple copper coffin had a cultivation realm far above that of an emperor god. It was likely to be a master god level primitive divine spirit. Would it be suppressed by the laws of the Supreme Immortal City? After all, beings above the Emperor God level could not enter the second level of the Grand Supreme Immortal City. Therefore, Lu Ming did not take out the purple copper coffin because he was not sure if it would work. If it did not, it would be a waste of time. However, At this time, Lu Ming had no choice but to take it out and give it a try. There's a forest in front. Let's go in and take a look, Yi Ling said at this time. Lu Ming saw it too. There was a forest in front of them. The forest was so vast that they could not see the end of it. In the forest, there were all kinds of pitch-black trees. These trees were extremely huge. Each of them was more than 10,000 meters tall. Whether it was the branches or the leaves, they were all pitch-black. The branches were twisted into strange shapes and looked extremely strange. Moreover, the two of them vaguely felt a dangerous aura from the forest. However, no matter how dangerous it was, could it be more dangerous than the avoiding disaster ghost? Perhaps the danger in the forest could help them escape? Lu Ming temporarily suppressed the idea of taking out the purple copper coffin. He and Yi Ling flew toward the forest at full speed and plunged into the forest. Squeak, 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 the avoiding disaster ghost screeched and stopped. It looked hesitant but did not rush into the forest in the end. The danger of the avoiding disaster ghost was resolved. However, Lu Ming and Yi Ling were still worried. To be able to make the calamity-avoiding ghost stop in its tracks, and even cause it to be afraid of it, this forest was definitely not to be underestimated. Could there be something even more terrifying than the calamity-avoiding ghost? Hiss, as if in response to Lu Ming and Yi Ling's worries, a faint sound came from the forest. The two of them focused their attention and looked towards the source of the sound. Then, a huge monster appeared in front of Lu Ming and the others. It was a giant snake. The giant snake was pitch black and incomparably huge. However, on the body of the giant snake, there were snake tails that looked like tentacles. It looked ferocious and terrifying. The most terrifying thing was the face of the giant snake. It was also a human face, but it was filled with a twisted horror. Just looking at it would make one's hair stand on end and a chill run down their spine. Disaster-avoiding ghost, another disaster-avoiding ghost. There was actually a disaster-avoiding ghost in this forest, and it was different from the species that Lu Ming and the others had encountered before. The aura of this disaster-avoiding ghost seemed to be even more terrifying than the one outside. It was no wonder that the one outside did not dare to charge in. Let's go. The two of them did not hesitate and rushed towards the other side of the forest. Hiss. This snake-like disaster-avoiding ghost let out a snake-like cry. Its body twisted and rushed towards Lu Ming and Yi Ling at an extremely fast speed. Lu Ming and Yi Ling used their movement skills and went around the huge trees, rushing towards the other side of the forest. They wanted to rush out from the other side of the forest to avoid the two disaster-avoiding ghosts outside and inside the forest. However, they did not run far before their faces turned even uglier. That was because a faint sound came from a pitch-black tree beside them. Then, a snake-like disaster-avoiding ghost circled around the tree and slithered downwards. The eyes of the forest were fixed on Lu Ming and Yi Ling. Another one. The two of them were shocked. There were actually two snake-like disaster-avoiding ghosts in this forest. Without any hesitation, the two of them changed directions and rushed forward. However, after running a few steps, the two of them stopped. Their faces were pale. That was because another disaster-avoiding ghost had appeared in front of them. Hiss, it was not just in front of them, but also on their left and right. Then, snake-like disaster-avoiding ghosts slithered over. Lu Ming and the others were surrounded. Lu Ming swept his gaze over and saw at least 8 disaster-avoiding ghosts. There were disaster-avoiding ghosts in all directions, surrounding them tightly. We're done for. Yi Ling smiled bitterly. Even though he was a peerless demon who had experienced all kinds of situations and various life and death situations, he could not help but show a trace of despair at this moment. One disaster-avoiding ghost was not something they could fight against. If they were caught, they would definitely die. And now, there were a total of 8 disaster-avoiding ghosts surrounding them. They had no chance at all. Even if the Master God was here, he would probably die, let alone them. We've barged into the lair of a disaster-avoiding ghost. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. At the same time, the purple copper coffin appeared in his hand. At this moment, he could only use the purple copper coffin to try his luck. Yi Ling's gaze fell on the purple copper coffin and he was looking forward to it. The taboo body had great luck. It should not die just like that, right? Now, he could only rely on Lu Ming. Crack. Lu Ming did not hesitate. He pushed the lid of the purple copper coffin and a crack appeared on the purple copper coffin. A terrifying aura filled the air. Crack. Lu Ming continued to push and the crack on the purple copper coffin became bigger. Hiss. At this moment, the 8 disaster-avoiding ghosts pounced on Lu Ming. Roar. A roar came from the purple copper coffin and it shook the entire forest. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He could tell that this was the roar of the primordial divine spirit. This roar seemed to have shocked the disaster-avoiding ghosts. They could not help but stop and look at the purple copper coffin. Roars came from the purple copper coffin continuously. Then, 2 arms covered in scales reached out from the crack. Following that, a head popped out as well. It was the primordial divine spirit that had appeared before. It was a Lord God-level primordial divine spirit. The primordial divine spirit's arms pushed against the sides of the purple copper coffin. He pushed with all his might and wanted to rush out of the purple copper coffin. But at this moment, something strange happened. In the void, a ray of light suddenly spread out. A circle of light appeared and pressed down on the primordial divine spirit. This light gave off a feeling of supremacy and eternity, as if it could suppress everything. It was as if all living beings and all things had to bow before this ray of light. Chapter 43-42. The light pressed down on the primordial divine spirit. Roar. The primordial divine spirit roared and struggled with all its might, as if it wanted to break through the suppression of the light and rush out of the purple copper coffin. However, the light was too strong. No matter how hard the primordial divine spirit tried, it did not budge. Instead, it continued to press down. The primordial divine spirit seemed to be unable to withstand it and was slowly pushed back into the purple copper coffin. At first, it was its head, then its arms. Slowly, it returned to the purple copper coffin and disappeared. Lu Ming and Yi Ling were dumbfounded. In particular, Lu Ming's heart was in turmoil. He was extremely shocked. He knew how powerful the primordial divine spirit was. It was an overgod-level primordial divine spirit, which was equivalent to the origin realm. It had once fought a fierce battle with the heavenly lord of the heavenly palace. Such a powerful existence had been pushed back into the purple copper coffin by a ray of light. It could not even come out. This ray of light was too terrifying. Was this the profundity of the Taishang Immortal City? The second level of the Taishang Immortal City did not allow beings above the Emperor God level to enter. Indeed, the primordial divine spirit could not come out of the purple copper coffin. Hiss. After the evil spirits saw the primordial divine spirit disappear, they screamed again. Their eyes were cold as they pounced on Lu Ming and Yi Ling. This is troublesome. A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Even the purple copper coffin had lost its effect. He had no other means to deal with the current situation. If he were to face these evil spirits with his own strength, he would definitely die. Yi Ling, let's fight, Lu Ming said. All right, let's fight. Yi Ling nodded. They were not people who would admit defeat easily. Even if they knew they were no match for them, they would still fight. Falling in a great battle was the final destination of a cultivator, not dying in a cowardly manner. However, at this moment, there was a change in the situation. At this moment, the primordial divine spirit's aura in the purple copper coffin suddenly disappeared without a trace. Immediately, another aura appeared. It was a new aura, one that Lu Ming had never felt before. What surprised Lu Ming and Yi Ling was that this aura was similar to the light that had suppressed the primordial god spirit. They were both supreme, eternal, and unfathomable. As soon as this aura rushed out, it spread in all directions. Being struck by this aura, the bodies of the 8 disaster-avoiding ghosts abruptly stiffened. Furthermore, their bodies began to tremble and their eyes were filled with fear. After shrieking a few times, the 8 tribulation-avoiding ghosts turned around and fled, vanishing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming and Yi Ling were dumbfounded. Especially Yi Ling. His mouth was wide open enough to fit a goose egg. Lu Ming, what else is in your bronze coffin other than a primordial divine spirit? Yi Ling could not help but ask. The fact that there was a terrifying primordial god in the purple copper coffin had already shocked Yi Ling. However, there seemed to be something else inside that was even more mysterious and terrifying. It was hard to guess what it was. Just an aura was enough to make the 8 crossing disaster ghosts disappear without a trace. I don't know either, Lu Ming said as he shook his head. He really did not know. Although he had obtained the purple copper coffin for a long time, he had always been unable to understand its mysteries. He always felt that the more he understood, the more mysterious it became. In the past, he had always thought that the purple copper coffin was the burial place of a primordial god spirit after it had fallen. However, the primordial god spirit that had appeared later was clearly not dead and was still alive. Moreover, there was a silk thread connected to the back of the primordial god spirit's head. It gave off a feeling that it was being controlled. Later on, the purple copper coffin had sucked Lu Ming's past body into it. There was still no news of it. Lu Ming could only sense that the past body was not dead and was still alive. Now, a new aura was emitted from the purple copper coffin. It was an aura that was somewhat similar to the one that had suppressed the primordial god spirit. There were more and more secrets about the purple copper coffin, and it was becoming more and more difficult to guess. That aura is very similar to that ray of light. That ray of light was formed by the ultimacy of the Grand Supreme Immortal City. The Grand Supreme Immortal City was left behind from the last era. Could your purple copper coffin also be a treasure from the last era? Yi Ling said. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. His words had awakened him from his dream. Yi Ling was right. Was the purple copper coffin really a treasure left behind from the last era? Was there an elite from the last era buried in it? However, what was the deal with the primordial god spirit? Why did it suck the past body into it? Lu Ming had more doubts in his heart. Let's not talk about it. Let's get out of here first, Lu Ming said, suppressing the doubts in his heart. It was not wise to stay in this place for long. Let's go. Yi Ling also nodded. This forest was obviously the nest of the disaster-avoiding ghost. The two of them rushed out of the forest. Soon, the two of them rushed out of the forest. However, as soon as the two of them rushed out of the forest, they heard a piercing scream. The disaster-avoiding ghost that had chased after them earlier appeared again and pounced on the two of them. This disaster-avoiding ghost had not left and had been wandering around the forest. As soon as Lu Ming and Yi Ling rushed out of the forest, they were sensed. However, Lu Ming had been holding the purple copper coffin in his hand, and the lid of the coffin was not closed. Lu Ming stared at the disaster-avoiding ghost and did not run away. This time, would the mysterious and unfathomable aura from the purple copper coffin appear again? The result did not disappoint Lu Ming. When the disaster-avoiding ghost approached Lu Ming and Yi Ling, the aura from the purple copper coffin spread out again. After being hit by the aura, the disaster-avoiding ghost revealed a look of horror. Then, it turned and ran, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming and Yi Ling looked at each other and then burst out laughing at the same time. Awesome, this is awesome. This copper coffin can actually scare the disaster-avoiding ghost away. In this disaster-avoiding sea, we don't have to be afraid of the disaster-avoiding ghost anymore. Yi Ling laughed heartily. He was extremely happy. Let's hurry up and set off, Lu Ming said. Although the purple copper coffin could scare the disaster-avoiding ghost away, their crisis was not over yet. They were still in the disaster-avoiding sea. The black fog was still corroding them. As long as they were in the disaster-avoiding sea, they would be in danger. The two of them did not say much. They used their movement techniques and flew in the direction of the core area. They had to get to the core area as soon as possible. They could not hold on for much longer. Lu Ming closed the lid of the purple copper coffin again. However, he did not put it away. Instead, he held it in his hand and kept his guard up at all times. Soon, another 5 to 6 hours had passed. The two of them looked more and more terrible. Their energy had been severely depleted. However, They did not know how far they were from the core area. If this continued, they would not be able to hold on for much longer. Chapter 43-43. Luckily, they still had a lot of desolation pills. Before they left, each of them had paid 20,000 desolation pills. They had received 4 million desolation pills, 2 million for each person. They could absorb desolation pills to replenish their energy. However, Lu Ming needed at least 12 million desolation pills to break through from the 5th to the 6th layer of the Emperor Supreme God realm. 2 million desolation pills was not a lot. It might not be enough for them to cross the disaster-avoiding ocean. Therefore, they could only try to save as much as possible and increase their speed. They would not give up until the last step. A few hours passed in the blink of an eye. That's. The two of them squinted their eyes and looked ahead. There was a huge shadow in front of them. At first glance, they thought it was a mountain. However, after taking a closer look, it was not a mountain, but a tree. A gigantic tree. The tree's crown reached into the clouds, covering the sky and the sun. In the next moment, a trace of shock appeared on their faces. Because they saw a shocking scene. On the branches of this tree, there were actually some ghosts that could avert disaster. Yes, disaster-avoiding ghosts. At a glance, there were at least a dozen disaster-avoiding ghosts on the branches. They seemed to be resting. However, this time, the disaster-avoiding ghosts seemed to have sensed something. They opened their eyes at the same time and looked at Lu Ming and the others coldly. In the next moment, the disaster-avoiding ghosts charged at Lu Ming at an extremely fast speed. Catcher. Lu Ming did not hesitate and opened the purple copper coffin. Just like the previous encounter with the calamity-avoiding ghosts, a mysterious aura emanated from the purple copper coffin. More than 10 calamity-avoiding ghosts screamed and turned to run. They ran to the branches of the tree and lay down on the branches, trembling. The two of them heaved a sigh of relief. There seems to be some seeds on the tree. Yi Ling pointed at the tree. Lu Ming looked over. True enough, he saw some seeds hanging on the branches. The seeds were black and the size of a fist. They gave off a hazy glow and there were about 5 or 6 of them. The black fog from all directions gathered and was eventually absorbed by the black seeds. At this moment, one of the black seeds fell to the ground. When the black seed landed on the ground, it immediately took root and sprouted, growing into a small tree. Then the small tree grew quickly, and the surrounding black mist began to gather towards the small tree. That is, Lu Ming and Yi Ling's eyes widened. The reason for that was because, as the little tree grew, some of its branches actually had disaster-avoiding ghosts. In the beginning, the crossing disaster ghost was still relatively small. However, as the small tree rapidly grew, the crossing disaster ghost also became larger. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Could it be that the ghost was born from this kind of tree? Soon, the small tree grew to a height of 100 meters, but it was still far from the big tree. At this moment, tree roots suddenly extended from the bottom of the big tree. More than a dozen roots, like a few long snakes, wrapped around the small tree, pulled it up by the roots, and pulled the small tree into the trunk of the big tree. The small tree quickly withered and finally merged into the roots of the big tree and disappeared. Lu Ming and Yi Ling realized that the big tree's glow seemed to be brighter. The two of them were dumbfounded. This big tree actually relied on devouring the small tree to improve itself. The seeds that it produced fell to the ground, sprouted rapidly, and grew rapidly. Before it was fully mature, it was devoured by the big tree. What was the principle behind this? The two of them were confused. At this moment, another seed fell to the ground. Just like before, the seed sprouted and grew rapidly. When it grew to about 100 meters, it was devoured by the big tree again. This seed is not to be underestimated. Not only can it grow rapidly, but it can also produce disaster-avoiding ghosts. If we can control it, it can become a powerful weapon, Lu Ming said. You're right. If we enter the core area, this seed can also grow rapidly and can indeed become a powerful weapon. However, this tree is not to be underestimated, Yi Ling said. He had the same thought as Lu Ming. Lu Ming, Since this seed can absorb the black mist here, if you can hold this seed, it might be able to isolate you from the black mist outside and prevent you from being corroded by the black mist. At this moment, the Bone Demon's voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. Since entering the Grand Supreme Immortal City, the Bone Demon seemed to have been suppressed by the profound laws of the Grand Supreme Immortal City. It could only hide in Lu Ming's mind and could not come out. It has such an effect. Lu Ming's eyes flashed, and he seemed to be tempted. Let's give it a try. Lu Ming whispered and finally decided to give it a try. He had the purple copper coffin, so he might be able to give it a try. Not to mention whether they could enter the core area. Even if they could, there were many experts in the core area. The strongest geniuses of the heavenly human tribe and the other powerful tribes had already entered the core area. There were also some young men in their prime who had cultivated for many years. Some of them had reached the 8th layer of the Divine God Realm, and some had even reached the 9th layer of the Divine God Realm. With their strength, even if they entered the core area, they would most likely be targeted and would not be able to gain a foothold. However, if they had this seed, they would have a powerful weapon. Brother Yi, hold the fort for me. After saying that, Lu Ming dragged the purple copper coffin and rushed towards the crown of the tree. Now, there were a total of 3 seeds on the crown of the tree. Lu Ming rushed towards one of the seeds. However, just as Lu Ming approached the seed, tree roots extended from the bottom of the tree. They were like tentacles that swept towards Lu Ming. The tree roots waved and a strong wind whistled, bringing with it a thick black mist. Without hesitation, Lu Ming pushed the purple copper coffin open. That mysterious aura appeared again and spread out in all directions. The tree's roots came to a sudden stop upon being hit by this aura. They danced wildly on the spot, emitting a feeling of fear. This tree is indeed intelligent. It can feel fear. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He stepped forward and approached the tree roots with the purple copper coffin. The roots of the big tree danced crazily, and that feeling of fear became even more intense. Then, with a swish, it shrunk back. Lu Ming continued to rush towards the crown of the tree. On the branches, the evil spirits opened their eyes and stared at Lu Ming. They wanted to rush towards Lu Ming and kill Lu Ming. However, when they saw the purple copper coffin in Lu Ming's hand, they did not dare to do so. They could only watch. The next moment, Lu Ming approached one of the seeds. He waved his hand and a wave of energy swept out and plucked the seed. Chapter 43-44. After plucking the first seed, Lu Ming stored it in his storage ring and proceeded to pluck the second one. Soon, all 3 seeds were stored in Lu Ming's storage ring. The big tree struggled continuously. Its roots waved wildly as it struggled in a frenzy. It seemed to be extremely furious. The crossing disaster ghosts on the branches were also extremely irritable. They screamed continuously and stared coldly at Lu Ming. If they were not afraid of the purple copper coffin's aura, they would have pounced on Lu Ming and torn Lu Ming to pieces. However, with the suppression of the purple copper coffin, they did not dare to do so. After Lu Ming plucked the 3 seeds, he retreated to Yi Ling's side. Bone Demon, how should I use it? Lu Ming secretly asked Bone Demon. There was a thick black mist on the seeds. Even if they obtained them, they could not use them because the mist would harm them. Drip a drop of blood on it and try, Bone Demon said. Lu Ming nodded. With a thought, a seed flew out of his storage ring. Lu Ming wrapped it with his forbidden power and suspended it in the air. The surrounding black fog was constantly gathering and being absorbed by the seed. Similarly, the black fog would also permeate the seed and constantly corrode the taboo power, causing Lu Ming's taboo power to be depleted rapidly. Lu Ming's expression changed. If he could not control the seed, holding it would increase the consumption of his power. Immediately, Lu Ming followed Bone Demon's suggestion. He squeezed out a drop of blood and flew it toward the seed. When the drop of blood approached the seed produced a suction force and absorbed the drop of blood. It entered the seed and merged with the seed. All of a sudden, Lu Ming had a strange feeling. It was as if the seed was already under his control. With a thought, the black fog on the surface of the seed vanished. It no longer corroded Lu Ming's forbidden energy. Moreover, the seed continued to absorb the black fog outside. Thus, the black fog around Lu Ming's body was absorbed, forming a vacuum around Lu Ming without any black fog. Lu Ming immediately felt the pressure lessen. The black fog was no longer a threat to him. It really works. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Yi Ling was also overjoyed. As long as the danger of the black fog was resolved, they would be able to move freely in the adversity-avoiding sea without any danger. Yi Ling, here. Lu Ming waved his hand and a seed flew towards Yi Ling. Yi Ling followed Lu Ming's instructions. First, he used his power to envelop the seed. Then, he squeezed out a drop of blood and flew it towards the seed. When the blood and the seed fused, Yi Ling controlled the seed. The black fog was no longer a threat to them. Then, Lu Ming used the same method to control the second seed. After that, the two of them used their movement techniques and continued to rush towards the core area. However, their state of mind was completely different from before. Previously, they had been under a lot of pressure. There was a strong sense of danger that constantly suppressed them. They had to keep moving forward and reach the core area as soon as possible. Otherwise, they would die. But now, although their speed was still very fast, they were very relaxed and didn't feel anxious at all. After that, they did not encounter any danger. Even if they encountered the adversity-avoiding ghost, it was scared away by the purple copper coffin. After a few days, they finally passed through the adversity-avoiding sea and arrived at a new land. The aura here was no different from the outer area. The only difference was that the desolation chi was much thicker. The desolation chi here is indeed much thicker than the outer area. Lu Ming sighed. This is just the ordinary area. The core area has ley lines. If we can find a ley line, the speed of condensing the desolation elixir will increase greatly. Yi Ling said. However, there is no black mist here like in the adversity-avoiding sea. I don't know if that seed will work. Lu Ming said. In the adversity-avoiding sea, they saw that the seed grew quickly and absorbed the black mist. However, the core area did not have that kind of black mist for them to absorb. Could the seed grow quickly? If the seed could not grow quickly, it would not be able to become their weapon of mass destruction. If they encountered the invincible powerhouses from the Heavenly Palace, Lu Ming and the rest would not be a match for them. Let's find a place to try it, Yi Ling said. That's the only way. Lu Ming nodded. Fortunately, they had 3 seeds in their hands. Even if they wasted one, it would not be a big deal. The two of them flew towards the depths of the core area at an extremely fast speed. Soon, the two of them arrived at a mountain kernel. Let's try it here, Lu Ming said. After that, Lu Ming took out a seed. With a wave of his hand, the seed flew towards the mountain col and landed on the ground. When the seed landed on the ground, it took root and sprouted at an astonishing speed. Then, it grew rapidly. This is, absorbing the black mist. Lu Ming and Yi Ling were shocked. They could clearly feel that there were wisps of black mist flying towards them from the void. They were absorbed by the seed and grew rapidly. They were already very far away from the adversity-avoiding sea. However, the seed could still absorb the black mist. The black mist seemed to have broken through the void. It was really amazing. The seed took root and sprouted, turning into a small tree. The small tree continued to grow rapidly at an astonishing speed. In less than a minute, the small tree became a towering tree. They could clearly see that there were more than 10 adversity-avoiding ghosts on the branches of the tree. They were lying on the branches and seemed to be in a deep sleep. Lu Ming, give it a try. See if you can control this big tree, Yi Ling said. Lu Ming nodded and focused his mind. The next moment, he felt a connection between his mind and the tree. Everything about the tree seemed to be under his control. Attack! Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat and he gave an order. Suddenly, the soil on the ground churned. The roots of the tree stretched out from the ground and waved like long snakes. They whipped the air and there were violent explosions. The power was terrifying. One of the roots lashed out at a nearby mountain peak, causing the mountain peak to explode. This is really amazing. Even a 9th-level Emperor God would not be able to withstand such an attack, Lu Ming thought to himself. He was very satisfied. Adversity-avoiding ghost. With another thought, the more than 10 adversity-avoiding ghosts who were lying on the branches suddenly opened their eyes. There was a ferocious murderous intent in their eyes. They flew out from the branches and danced in the air. However, they did not fly towards Lu Ming and Yi Ling. Because everything was under Lu Ming's control. Great! Yi Ling cheered from the side. Lu Ming also smiled. This seed was really a great weapon. Chapter 43-45. As long as this kind of seed was planted, it would quickly grow into a towering tree. Moreover, it would have an extremely shocking attack power. Moreover, the tree branches would give birth to evil spirits, which were the most terrifying. Once this tree was planted, the surrounding area would be completely under Lu Ming's control. If the people from the heavenly palace came, they would die. What a pity, we wasted a seed. We should have found the ley vein occupied by the heavenly palace and planted the seed there. That way, that ley vein would be under our control. Lu Ming sighed. Indeed, it was a mistake. Yi Ling also shook his head and sighed. With the effect of this seed, 1 seed could occupy an ley vein. 3 seeds could occupy 3 ley veins. Now, they had wasted a seed, which was equivalent to wasting an ley vein. They felt their hearts bleeding. It's all right. 2 ley veins are enough. Once our cultivation improves, why would we need to rely on this seed? Lu Ming smiled and quickly recovered. He was full of confidence. Now, he had lost because of his low cultivation. Once his cultivation improved, he would not be afraid of anyone. With his own strength, he could occupy other ley veins. Why would he need a seed? What they needed most was to establish a foothold in the beginning. With the seed, once they established a foothold in the beginning, there would be no problem. Let's go look for ley veins, Lu Ming said. Then, the 2 of them left to look for ley veins. In the core area, ley veins were not everywhere. In fact, there were not many ley veins. The ley veins in the core area were mainly divided into 2 levels, ordinary ley veins and advanced ley veins. Obviously, the concentration of desolation chi in the advanced ley veins was much higher than in the ordinary ley veins. Of course, the concentration of desolation chi in the ordinary ley veins was also much higher than in the outer area. Lu Ming and the rest had entered the core area relatively late. He reckoned that most of the Earth meridians had been occupied by others. Some people had entered the core area for a few years. No one knew what level their cultivation had reached. No matter what level their cultivation had reached, what Lu Ming needed to do now was to occupy the ley veins, condense desolation pills, and catch up with their cultivation. The core region was extremely vast, even larger than the outer regions. After searching for half a day, they finally found an earth vein. Up ahead, a mountain range stretched across the land. From afar, it looked like a huge dragon. Mist filled the air above the mountain range. That was clearly the dense desolate chi that could not be dispersed. What a dense desolate chi. Let's go. Yi Ling's eyes lit up as the 2 of them flew towards the mountain range. Soon, the 2 of them approached the mountain range. Who is it? This is the territory of my Sun clan, you 2 should leave. Several voices came from the mountain range. Then, several figures shot up into the sky and stood in front of Lu Ming and Yi Ling. There were more than 20 people in total, and all of them wore long golden robes. A layer of golden flames danced on their bodies, giving off a scorching aura. So it's people from the Sun clan. The 2 of them were startled. The solar race was ranked 31st on the Great Desolate 10,000 races ranking. It could be considered a strong race. However, it was naturally much weaker than the top 10 races. Lu Ming and Yi Ling did not feel much pressure. This is the territory of your Sun clan? Isn't that ridiculous? The Taishang Immortal City is an ownerless place. Anyone can come here. Now, we're going to refine the desolate pills on this mountain range. Everyone, please make way, Lu Ming said. Our Sun clan has occupied it first, so it's our territory. You 2 should leave. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. A muscular man from the Sun clan said coldly. Lu Ming glanced at them. There were more than 20 people from the Sun Clan. 5 of them were younger while the rest were in their prime. Among them, many of them had reached the 6th layer of the Emperor God realm. 2 of them had even reached the 7th layer of the Emperor God realm. The Sun Clan had such high cultivations among their prime. It was evident that these people had gained a lot from this place. "We're going to meditate on this mountain range," Yi Ling said. "You're courting death," a muscular man from the Sun Clan shouted coldly. "Why are you wasting your breath on them? These 2 brats don't know what's good for them. Just kill them." "That's right. Kill them." The people from the Sun Clan were enraged. Each of them was filled with cold murderous intent. They were like suns, emitting a scorching aura. Boom, boom, boom. These people moved. They were like suns, charging towards Lu Ming and the others. Clang. Yi Ling moved. He unsheathed his sword and the sword light shone brightly. A few rays of sword light slashed towards the suns. Several suns were directly split in half by the sword light, and the people inside were also directly killed. Among them, there was a 7th layer of the Emperor God realm. Even though the strong man of the 7th Great Supreme God layer from the Sun Clan was 1 level higher than Yi Ling, his fighting strength hadn't reached 6 stars yet, it was only 3 stars. Yi Ling's battle strength was close to 10 stars. The difference was too great. The Sun Clan was not the Heavenly Human Clan. The muscular men from the Heavenly Human Clan that Lu Ming and the others had encountered previously had battle strengths of 5 stars, 6 stars, or even 7 stars. The young geniuses were even more terrifying. Some of them even had battle strength of 8 stars. However, they were from the Heavenly Human Clan. The Sun Clan was not even close to the top 10 clans, let alone the Heavenly Human Clan. In the Sun Clan, there were very few people who had battle strength of 4 stars. How could these people be a match for Lu Ming and Yi Ling when their cultivation was not much higher? When Yi Ling attacked, Lu Ming attacked as well. Spear light burst forth, and the suns were extinguished one by one. In just a few breaths, only 2 of the 20 Sun Clan members were left. The rest were all killed. "Oh no, let's leave. Let's go." There were still some people from the Sun Clan in the mountain range. They had not attacked previously. Instead, they were guarding the pill furnaces and refining the desolate pills. "Leave the pill furnaces before you go," Yi Ling said coldly. He turned into a ray of sword light and rushed over. The people guarding the pill furnaces were not even as strong as the previous batch. They were no match for Yi Ling. After a few of them were killed, the others were terrified. They threw out their pill furnaces and ran for their lives. Soon, Yi Ling flew over with a smile on his face. "Not bad. There are 30 pill furnaces with a diameter of 1 meter. Unfortunately, there are no large pill furnaces with a diameter of 3 meters, Yi Ling said. "Not bad." Lu Ming also smiled. The majority of the pill furnaces were definitely in the hands of the Heavenly Human Clan or the top 10 clans. It was already a very good harvest for the Sun Clan to be able to obtain 30 pill furnaces. The 2 of them split it equally. Each of them had 15 pill furnaces. "The 2 of you, tell me about the current situation in the core area. Tell me everything you know," Lu Ming asked coldly as he looked at the 2 young men from the Sun Clan. Chapter 43-46. The 2 young men of the Sun Tribe did not dare to hide anything. They immediately told Qin Nan everything they knew. Besides, it was not a big secret. There was nothing to hide. According to the 2 young men from the Sun Tribe, Lu Ming and Yi Ling had a rough understanding of the core area. There were a total of 96 earth veins in the vast land of the core area. There were 73 ordinary earth veins and 23 advanced earth veins. Each of the top 10 races occupied a high-grade earth vein. The Heavenly Human Tribe occupied a total of 13 high-grade earth veins. As for the other smaller tribes, they occupied the ordinary earth veins. Of course, there were also people from the smaller tribes who entered, but they were not strong enough to occupy the earth veins. Almost all the advanced earth veins have been occupied. However, did the Heaven Destroyer not occupy a single advanced earth vein? Lu Ming pondered. Perhaps the people of the Sky Exterminating Army had secretly occupied some small earth veins. Or perhaps, the people of the Heavenly Extermination Army in this astral palace were not strong enough. The second level of the Taishang Immortal City was divided into 36 astral palaces, which meant that it was divided into 36 different areas. When everyone entered the Taishang Immortal City, they would be automatically assigned to one of the 36 astral palaces. Naturally, some astral palaces would be stronger, while others would be weaker. Perhaps the members of the Heaven Exterminating Army in this star palace were weaker. We have a simple map here. I'll give it to you now. Please let us go. A young man from the Sun tribe said. Then, he took out a jade talisman and handed it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming took the jade talisman and inserted a strand of energy. The jade talisman immediately lit up and a map appeared in the air. On this map, there were lines and dots of light. There were a total of 96 light spots. Among them, 23 were the brightest. Obviously, these light spots represented the earth veins. 23 light spots represented 23 advanced earth veins. Furthermore, there were words on every single dot of light, indicating which race it was occupied by. It was clear at a glance. This would be very helpful for Lu Ming and the others. Can we go now? The two Sun race members looked at Lu Ming with hopeful eyes. Lu Ming casually waved his hand. The two Sun race youths were overjoyed and flew away. However, a few sword lights flashed, and the two Sun race youths' vital signs disappeared. Their corpses fell into the mountain range. Lu Ming was expressionless, as if he had expected this. Let's see how fast this ordinary earth vein can condense the great desolate pill, Lu Ming said. After that, the two of them landed in the middle of the mountain range and chose a relatively good location. They took out a few pill furnaces with a diameter of 1 meter and began to activate them to refine pills. A day later, they had a rough idea of what was going on. 240. In one day, a low-grade pill furnace could refine 2 batches of great desolate pills. Each batch contained 120 pills, for a total of 240 pills. This speed was 10 times faster than in the outer regions. Lu Ming and Yi Ling's eyes were extremely bright. Even their breathing became heavy. 10 times the speed, this was too shocking. This was just an ordinary earth vein. How fast would those high-grade earth veins condense the great desolate pill? Let's occupy a high-grade earth vein first. The two of them looked at each other and had the same idea. They did not plan to stay in this ordinary earth vein for long. Instead, they planned to occupy a high-grade earth vein. With the black seed, anything was possible. Without the seed, they could only wait in this ordinary earth vein. They might even be hunted down by the elites of the Heavenly Palace. Now, they were full of ambition and had no fear. The nearest high-grade earth vein is occupied by the Heavenly Human Tribe. Let's choose this earth vein, Lu Ming said. Yi Ling naturally had no objections. Then, the two of them set off and flew toward the nearest earth vein. This place was not too far away from the high-grade earth vein. In less than a day, the two of them arrived. It was a huge mountain range. It was 10 times bigger than the previous one. Dense fog filled the air. It was like a fairyland. Even from afar, he could feel an ancient aura surging toward him. A high-grade earth vein is indeed extraordinary. Lu Ming and Yi Ling's eyes lit up. Without hesitation, they stepped into the air and flew toward the center of the mountain range. The mountain range was continuous. The two sides were slightly shorter. The center was the highest. Obviously, it was also the place with the densest desolate aura. Heavenly Human Tribe, I'll give you 3 breaths time to get lost. Otherwise, you'll be killed. Before the two of them got close, a cold voice came from the mountain range. Heavenly Human Tribe? Very well, I'll give you 5 minutes to get lost. Otherwise, you'll be killed. Lu Ming replied. His voice spread throughout the mountain range. In the mountain range, all the Heavenly Human Tribe members heard it. Where did this idiot come from? He's courting death. How dare he? Kill him. His entire family should be executed. In the mountain range, voices filled with killing intent came out. Go and see which blind thing came from. Bring his head to me. In the mountain range, a heavenly human tribe member passed down the order. Yes. Someone accepted the order. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At least 10 figures broke through the air and flew toward Lu Ming and Yi Ling. In front of Lu Ming and Yi Ling, more than 10 figures appeared. They were all heavenly human tribe members. When these heavenly human tribe members saw Lu Ming and Yi Ling, some of them could not help but widen their eyes. Mu Yun, it's Mu Yun, someone yelled. Among the many people, a few of them had chased after Lu Ming in the Adversity Crossing flying boat in the Adversity Crossing Sea. They recognized Lu Ming immediately. What? Mu Yun. He actually dares to come to us? In the mountain range, the remaining heavenly human tribe members were shocked. Many heavenly human tribe members who were too lazy to make a move put down what they were doing and flew into the sky. Everyone wanted to kill Lu Ming. As long as they killed him, they would have a meteoric rise in the future. Even those who were at the critical moment of breaking through stopped cultivating and rushed toward Lu Ming and Yi Ling. Let's go. At this moment, Lu Ming and Yi Ling rushed to the side and to a corner of the mountain range. Don't let him escape. Chase. At first, more than 10 heavenly human tribe members chased after Lu Ming. Behind them, there was a group of people who were all heavenly human tribe members. There were more than 100 of them. Lu Ming and Yi Ling could not be bothered. They sped up and rushed toward the mountain range. They were not far from the mountain range. In a few flashes, they arrived. Once they reached the mountain range, Lu Ming waved his hand and a black seed flew out and landed in the mountain range. Once the black seed landed in the mountain range, it took root and sprouted, growing rapidly. Chapter 43-47. The black seed began to grow rapidly. Soon, it grew into a towering tree. Lu Ming and Yi Ling dashed to the bottom of the big tree. They turned around and looked coldly at the heavenly human clan experts who were dashing toward them. The strong cultivators of the heavenly human tribe were astonished when they saw the tree. They were even more astonished when they saw the disaster-avoiding ghosts on the tree. Die. Lu Ming said coldly. All of a sudden, the dozen or so crossing disaster ghosts on the tree branches opened their eyes and charged toward the heavenly human tribe experts. I don't believe it. Are they really disaster-avoiding ghosts? How can disaster-avoiding ghosts appear here? They're just illusions. Destroy them. The experts of the celestial race shouted coldly. They erupted with powerful auras and unleashed killing moves. All sorts of attacks bombarded the crossing disaster ghost. However, when the attacks landed on the disaster-avoiding ghosts, they only made the disaster-avoiding ghosts tremble. Then, they continued attacking the strong cultivators of the heavenly human tribe as if nothing had happened. Oh no! Shouted the strong cultivators of the heavenly human tribe. They wanted to retreat, but it was too late. One of the disaster-avoiding ghosts rushed into the body of a strong cultivator of the heavenly human tribe. The strong cultivator of the heavenly human tribe gave a horrible shriek and his face became distorted. What was even more terrifying was that his body rapidly shriveled and soon turned into a dried corpse without any sign of life as it fell to the ground. The strong cultivator of the heavenly human tribe wasn't the only one. The other strong cultivators of the heavenly human tribe were the same. Their attacks were useless against the disaster-avoiding ghosts. The disaster-avoiding ghosts rushed into their bodies and turned them into mummies. Then, the disaster-avoiding ghost rushed out of their bodies, and its size seemed to have increased by a size. The strongest cultivator of the heavenly human tribe was at the 7th great supreme god layer. In a flash, they were all killed. None of them were left alive. The strong cultivators of the heavenly human tribe were astonished. It's the disaster-avoiding ghosts. It's really the disaster-avoiding ghost. Why are there disaster-avoiding ghosts here? This is the core area. It's that tree. There's something wrong with that tree. Shouted the strong cultivators of the heavenly human tribe. They slowed down and stopped in the distance. They looked at the disaster-avoiding ghosts cautiously. What should we do? A celestial asked. Mu Yun, don't let them go. Although these disaster-avoiding ghosts are powerful, This is not the disaster-avoiding ocean. I don't believe that they are as terrifying as the ones in the disaster-avoiding ocean. That's right, there's no black mist here. The strength of the crossing disaster ghosts should be limited. With so many of us, we should be able to defeat these crossing disaster ghosts. A few of the most fearsome heavenly human tribe warriors spoke one after another. Those strong men from the heavenly human tribe were extremely strong. They had all reached the 9th great supreme god layer. 2 of the heavenly human tribe's brawny men were especially shocked. The 2 brawny men of the heavenly human tribe had participated in the hunt for Lu Ming and Yi Ling in the adversity-avoiding ocean. They clearly remembered that they had taken a part of Lu Ming and Yi Ling's crossing adversity airship. Furthermore, in order to fight against the crossing adversity ghost, Lu Ming and Yi Ling had thrown out the remaining parts of the crossing adversity airship. If one didn't have a calamity traversing airship in the calamity traversing ocean, wouldn't it only lead to death? Why were Lu Ming and Yi Ling still alive, and why did they obtain such a terrifying tree? They couldn't figure it out. These 2 guys are too strange. We have to get rid of them. Let's attack together and kill this kid. One of the brawny men from the heavenly human tribe who had participated in the hunt for Lu Ming shouted. Attack together, kill. There were at least 100 heavenly human tribe warriors there. Some were young and some were in their prime. Of course, most of them were in their prime and their strength was shocking. Boom, boom, boom. The heavenly human tribe warriors were like erupting volcanoes. Terrifying auras burst out from them and they charged towards Lu Ming and Yi Ling kill. Lu Ming gave the order to the dozen or so crossing ghosts. The crossing disaster ghosts let out ear-piercing screams and charged towards the heavenly human tribe warriors. Kill. Over 100 heavenly human tribe cultivators roared as they unleashed over 100 attacks toward the dozen or so evil spirits. This time, the heavenly human tribe warriors' attacks were even more terrifying. Most importantly, they were too strong. More than half of them were above the 7th layer of the Great Supreme God Realm. There were also many 8th layer of the Great Supreme God Realm. There were even 5 9th layer of the Great Supreme God Realm warriors. The combination of these forces was simply too powerful. Over 100 attacks landed on the crossing disaster ghosts. The crossing disaster ghosts trembled violently and their bodies kept twisting. However, in the end, the heavenly human tribe warriors' attacks did not destroy the crossing disaster ghosts. The crossing disaster ghosts broke through the heavenly human tribe's attacks and continued to attack the heavenly human tribe warriors. The heavenly human tribe warriors' faces changed drastically. Some of the more timid ones involuntarily stepped back. Use the ultimate heavenly energy, a brawny heavenly human tribe warrior shouted. Heavenly punishment. Heavenly punishment. Among the 100 heavenly human tribe warriors, there were only a dozen of them who had truly mastered the ultimate heavenly energy. However, the ultimate heavenly energy was not to be underestimated. The heavenly punishment force, and other supreme heavenly powers formed different types of attacks and once again blasted towards the dozen or so tribulation-avoiding ghosts. This time, the crossing disaster ghost's body trembled even more violently. Its body was actually blocked and it couldn't rush over. It's working. The heavenly human tribe warriors' eyes lit up. The ultimate heavenly energy could block the crossing disaster ghosts. This made them overjoyed. Lu Ming and Yi Ling's expressions changed slightly. It seems that this is not the crossing disaster ocean after all. Moreover, these crossing disaster ghosts have just been born. There is still a huge gap between their strength and the crossing disaster ghosts in the crossing disaster ocean. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Yi Ling. Yi Ling nodded. Their strength is indeed much weaker. However, they seem to be able to grow. It should be enough to deal with these heavenly human tribe warriors. Lu Ming continued to control the crossing disaster ghosts to attack the heavenly human tribe warriors. Those who control the power of the paramount heavens, stop the calamity crossing ghosts. The rest of you, go kill Mu Yun. Also, cut down that tree. My guess is that once that tree is dead, the calamity crossing ghosts will vanish. A young man from the heavenly human tribe said. This person was extremely handsome. He was young and belonged to the younger generation. However, his cultivation level had reached the 8th layer of the great god realm. He was definitely a peerless genius of the heavenly human tribe. He had great prestige. Many strong men from the heavenly human tribe seemed to obey his orders. Immediately, the heavenly human tribe warriors followed the young man's instructions. Under the young man's lead, they used the ultimate heavenly energy to attack the crossing disaster ghosts and block them. As for the other heavenly human tribe warriors, they went around the crossing disaster ghosts from the other side and charged towards Lu Ming and Yi Ling Mu Yun, die, kill. The eyes of the heavenly human tribe members were filled with greed. One by one, they launched attacks at Lu Ming. Chapter 43-48. Lu Ming and Yi Ling remained calm in the face of the attacks from the heavenly human tribe. They had no intention of fighting back. When the attacks came close to Lu Ming and Yi Ling, the tree moved. Whoosh! Roots that were thicker than a person's waist extended from the tree's roots. They were like long snakes that swept toward the heavenly human tribe. The roots were extremely powerful. Some of the weaker heavenly human tribe members were hit by the roots. They screamed and their bodies exploded. Then, their flesh and blood were all absorbed by the roots. Even the stronger ones, such as those at the 8th or 9th level of the great god realm, were sent flying by the roots and vomited blood. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. There were at least a dozen roots. Each of them was more than 1,000 miles long. They danced in the air and attacked crazily. In an instant, at least 30 heavenly human tribe members were killed by the roots. Their flesh and blood were absorbed by the roots. After absorbing the flesh and blood of the heavenly human tribe members, the tree seemed to have become more luxuriant and taller. Its roots also became thicker and more powerful. The dozens of roots grew longer and swept toward the remaining heavenly human tribe members. Damn it! Back off! The heavenly human tribe members were shocked and quickly retreated. As they retreated, they attacked the roots and tried to cut them off. However, when these attacks landed on the roots, they only emitted clang 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 sounds of metal colliding. They only left marks on the roots, but did not cut through them. The dozens of roots continued to attack the heavenly human tribe members. Another dozen heavenly human tribe members were caught off guard and were swept away by the roots. They were killed instantly and their flesh and blood were absorbed by the roots. The remaining 50 heavenly human tribe members were terrified. They did not dare to stay any longer and quickly retreated. You want to retreat? Disaster-avoiding ghosts, come back, Lu Ming thought. The calamity-avoiding ghosts, who had been battling the dozen or so heavenly humans who had mastered the supreme power of the heavens, suddenly turned around and charged toward the retreating heavenly humans. The disaster-avoiding ghosts and the roots attacked from two sides. The heavenly human tribe members could not escape and they inevitably bumped into each other. Instantly, more than a dozen heavenly human tribe experts had their bodies invaded by more than a dozen disaster-avoiding ghosts. These heavenly human tribe elites let out blood-curdling screams. Under the horrified gazes of the other heavenly human tribe elites, they quickly shriveled up and turned into dried corpses. Their essence, chi, and soul had all been devoured. This time, many of them had the strength of the 8th Great Supreme God Layer, and the others had the strength of the 7th Great Supreme God Layer. After devouring these experts, the bodies of the dozen or so calamity-overcoming ghosts became significantly more corporeal and larger. Their auras became even more sinister and frightening. They were at least twice as strong as before. Creak, creak, creak. These disaster-avoiding ghosts screamed, and their gazes became even more ferocious as they stared at the other heavenly humans. The remaining heavenly humans felt chills run down their spines and cold sweat trickled down their backs. They no longer had the heart to continue fighting and fled in all directions. If that was the case, they would be even more unable to block the pincer attack of the tree roots and the disaster-avoiding ghost. These celestial clan experts fell one after another. Even if the 10 experts with the strongest heavenly powers went all out to defend, it was useless. The celestials were killed one by one, and they were all turned into nutrients for the tree, making it stronger and stronger. Retreat, retreat. shouted the young genius of the celestial clan in the end. He chose to retreat. Lu Ming, of course, wouldn't let these celestial clan experts retreat. He controlled the tree and its roots extended to 10,000 miles. At the same time, the dozen or so disaster-avoiding ghosts chased after the celestial clan experts. In the end, the celestial clan experts paid a heavy price and escaped from the mountain range. But it was too tragic. Originally, there had been more than 100 celestial clan experts in the mountain range. But in the end, only 7 of them had survived. Even a strong man of the heavenly human clan who had the strength of the 9th great supreme god Leia was careless. He was surrounded by a few ghosts and was killed. That young genius of the celestial clan took the other 6 celestial clan experts and ran very far away. They only stopped when the disaster-avoiding ghosts stopped chasing them. Damn it, Mu Yun!" roared the celestial clan expert. The heaven's favorite of the celestial tribe growled. His face was twisted with anger and was extremely ferocious. Their losses were too great. This time, they had suffered too great a loss. The celestial clan was divided into many branches, and the competition between them was great. They had to compete for power and resources, etc. He was the leader of this high-grade earth vein, which meant that his branch had occupied it. The other celestial clan experts were his subordinates. But now, they were all dead. It was too great a loss for him. "Young Master Yi Chu Haohan, what should we do now?" asked a strong man. The young man's name was Yi Chu Haohan. "What should we do? Of course, we have to take revenge. Mu Yun, I will skin him alive and pull out his tendons. Now, let's leave this place and find other experts to kill this brat together." Yi Chu Haohan roared. His killing intent was extremely strong. After saying that, he turned around and left with the other 6 celestial clan experts. On the mountain range, Lu Ming and Yi Ling watched Yi Chu Haohan and the others leave. It's a pity that this is not the disaster-avoiding sea. The disaster-avoiding ghosts are greatly restricted, Lu Ming sighed. Of course, he would not let Yi Chu Haohan and the others go easily. Unfortunately, he found that the disaster-avoiding ghosts could not be too far away from the tree. If they were too far away from the tree, their strength would decrease greatly. Obviously, they would still be greatly affected if they were not in the disaster-avoiding sea. The celestial clan will probably retaliate soon. Let's seize the time to condense the desolation pills and cultivate, Yi Ling said. Alright, let's count our gains first, Lu Ming said. This time, they had killed more than 100 celestial clan experts and obtained their storage rings. The 2 of them were looking forward to it. Would there be no pill furnaces and desolation pills in the storage rings of these celestial clan experts? The 2 of them came to the bottom of the tree, took out all the storage rings, and began to count them. After counting, the 2 of them smiled. It was a big gain. It was really a big gain. Among the rings of holding, there were about 12 million desolation pills. After splitting the spoils, the 2 of them each had about 6 million desolation pills. In addition, the 2 of them had some left before, so they had a lot of desolation pills. In addition, there were 200 pill furnaces. Most of them were pill furnaces with a diameter of 1 meter, but there were 10 pill furnaces with a diameter of 3 meters. The 2 of them divided it equally, so each of them had 100 pill furnaces. Lu Ming's heart was beating faster. After all, he had worked so hard and only had a total of 75 pill furnaces. Among them, there were only 5 pill furnaces with a diameter of 3 meters. With these 100 pill furnaces, the total number of pill furnaces was 175. Among them, there were 10 pill furnaces with a diameter of 3 meters. Yi Ling probably had even more pill furnaces. It's a pity that Yi Chu Haohan escaped. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. Chapter 43-49. Yi Chu Haohan was the leader of the heavenly human tribe. Most of the pill furnaces must be in his hands. As for the others, they probably only had a small portion. This was only a small portion of the pill furnaces, yet there were already 200 of them. Yi Chu Haohan must have even more pill furnaces. If they could kill him, They would be rich. It was a pity that the other party had escaped. As long as the other party left the range of the calamity-avoiding ghost, Lu Ming could not do anything to them. His and Yi Ling's actual combat power was still a far cry from that of the heavenly humans. Based on their actual combat power, they would definitely be killed in seconds. The two of them came to the bottom of the tree and started refining the desolation pills without stopping. Lu Ming chose a flat area to sit down on. With a wave of his hand, 175 pill furnaces flew out and landed on the ground. Swoosh! Swoosh! Lu Ming waved his hand and streaks of forbidden energy flew into the pill furnaces. Buzz! The pill furnaces vibrated and runes appeared on them. The desolation chi between heaven and earth quickly gathered towards the pill furnaces. The desolation chi here was too dense. When it gathered towards the pill furnaces, it was like a tornado was blowing. After activating all 175 pill furnaces, Lu Ming did not bother about them anymore. He started to comprehend the normal secret skills. Half a day later, the 175 pill furnaces started to vibrate. Then, desolation pills flew out like raindrops. There were too many of them. They were densely packed and flew out of the pill furnaces continuously, filling the entire sky. So many, even Lu Ming took a deep breath. Then, he grabbed the air and a strong suction force was produced. All the desolation pills gathered towards Lu Ming's palm. Lu Ming scanned with his spiritual consciousness and calculated the exact number of desolation pills. 159,000. In just half a day, he had refined a single furnace of pills and the number of pills had reached 159,000. This speed was extremely shocking and terrifying. At the same time, Lu Ming also calculated the number of pills produced by the pill furnaces with a diameter of 1 meter and 3 meters. A pill furnace with a diameter of 1 meter could refine 600 desolation pills in one furnace. In the outer region, a pill furnace with a diameter of 1 meter could only refine 12 desolation pills in one furnace. Previously, Lu Ming and the others had tried refining 120 desolation pills in one furnace on an ordinary earth vein. But here, 600 desolation pills in one furnace was 5 times more than an ordinary earth vein. A pill furnace with a diameter of 3 meters could refine 6,000 desolation pills in one furnace. No wonder the heavenly human tribe and the top 10 tribes had occupied the high-level earth veins. They're refining desolation pills. If I want to break through from the 5th to the 6th Great Supreme God layer, I need 12 million desolate pills. At this speed, I'll need 40 days to refine them, Lu thought. Then, he put the hundreds of thousands of desolation pills into his storage ring and continued to refine desolation pills into the furnace. Just like that, Lu Ming refined elixirs while comprehending the secret skill. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. In 10 days, Lu Ming had refined more than 3 million desolation pills. In addition to the 8 million desolation pills he had before, he now had more than 10 million desolation pills. He was not far from 12 million desolation pills. Boom! At this moment, a powerful aura came from about 1,000 miles away from Lu Ming. A sword light could be vaguely seen soaring into the sky. Yi Ling is about to break through. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. This aura was clearly Yi Ling's. It seemed that Yi Ling had finally collected enough desolation pills to break through. Yi Ling had accumulated a lot of desolation pills in the outer region. After working with Lu Ming, the two of them had more than 8 million desolation pills. In addition to the refining during this period, Yi Ling definitely had more than 20 million desolation pills. Yi Ling's cultivation was higher than Lu Ming's. He was in the 6th layer of the Great Supreme God Realm. To break through to the 7th layer of the Great Supreme God Realm, he would need a lot of desolation pills. He needed more than Lu Ming to break through to the 6th layer of the Great Supreme God Realm. After all, Yi Ling was also a peerless genius. The power he controlled was not to be underestimated. Although it was far from taboo power, he still needed more energy than ordinary people to break through. Yi Ling's aura continued to soar. When it reached a peak, it slowly decreased. Lu Ming knew that Yi Ling had reached the 7th layer of the Great Supreme God Realm and stabilized. Lu Ming smiled. After all, He and Yi Ling were in a cooperative relationship. Furthermore, along the way, they had experienced life and death situations. He still trusted Yi Ling's character. The stronger Yi Ling was, the better it would be for him. Yi Ling had broken through to the 7th layer of the Great Supreme God realm. In addition, his battle strength was close to 10 stars. He would be a great help. I have almost enough desolation pills. Continue. Lu Ming collected his thoughts and controlled the cauldron to continue refining desolation pills. At this moment, Lu Ming's eyes flashed as he looked into the distance. In the distance, there were streaks of light rushing over at an astonishing speed. At a glance, there were at least a few hundred streaks of light. The people of the heavenly human tribe are indeed here. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. Whoosh! 1,000 miles away, Yi Ling soared into the sky and stood in the air, looking into the distance. Soon, the streaks of light converged and stopped. A few hundred figures appeared in the air. Most of them were experts of the heavenly human tribe. However, there were also some other tribes, such as the Angel tribe, the Demon tribe, the Buddha tribe, the Blood tribe, and the Soul tribe. They were all from the top 10 tribes. The total number was more than 500. Mu Yun is in this earth vein. Do you see that tree? A young man stepped out from the heavenly human tribe and pointed at the tree that Lu Ming had planted with a seed. This young man was Yi Chu Haohan. Is this tree really so terrifying that it killed more than 100 of your people? Another prodigy of the heavenly human tribe said with a puzzled look. This prodigy of the heavenly human tribe was also a terrifying existence. His status in the heavenly human tribe was not inferior to Yi Chu Haohan. He led a group of people and occupied another high-level earth vein. This time, he was called out by Yi Chu Haohan. Of course, it was also because he was greedy and killed Mu Yun. Don't underestimate a tree. This tree should be related to the disaster-avoiding sea. The attack power of its roots is extremely terrifying. The most terrifying thing is that there are more than a dozen disaster-avoiding ghosts living on it. Yi Chu Haohan explained. What? Disaster-avoiding ghosts? And there are more than a dozen of them? Everyone's expression changed drastically, revealing a look of horror. They knew how terrifying the disaster-avoiding ghosts were. It was not something that divine emperors could resist. Facing the disaster-avoiding ghosts, they would only die. Everyone, don't be too afraid. After all, this isn't the Calamity Crossing Ocean. The Calamity Crossing Ghost is greatly restricted here. Its strength isn't too strong. Previously, we were able to block its attack with the utmost heaven energy. Moreover, it seems like the Calamity Crossing Ghost can't go too far away from the tree. As long as we can cut down the tree, the Calamity Crossing Ghost will disappear on its own. Yi Chu Haohan said, "You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.